When you talk to the residents of Kfar Aza, or for that matter, Be'eri or Nachal Oz, or any of the communities that are adjacent to the Gaza Strip, they tell you the same story over and over again. This place is 95% paradise and 5% hell. And we always knew it was 95% paradise and 5% hell. Now that I'm here on the first anniversary of October 7th, I'm thinking about something that really I've thought about a lot this year, but you feel it here. And throughout the years, I never wanted to go on the March of the Living. I never felt any need to go to Poland and see Auschwitz or any of the other death camps, or to go to or even to go to the ghettos. I always felt that was something that was done to the Jews by other people. And I didn't feel like I wanted to go and spend time seeing where Jews were victimized, where Jews were slaughtered by other people. I wanted to just be part of Israel and building this Jewish country, which is why I made Aliyah. I will read Holocaust histories now and again, but I never wanted it to be the story of the Jews. I always believed that it was the story of Europe. And when you come to Kfar Aza, you see that really we should be sending our kids from now on to the kibbutzim here on the Gaza envelope, because it tells us a bunch of different things that are very important to keep in mind. It's important to keep in mind that what happened in Auschwitz, what happened in Europe, happened because we're Jews. And anywhere there are Jews, something like Auschwitz can happen, even here in Israel. Because the hatred of the Jews is unique in its nature, in its annihilationist nature. That obviously not everybody who hates a Jew or hates the Jews is a Nazi, but inherent in the idea that the problems of the world are the responsibility or the guilt of the Jewish people is the notion that if you wipe out the Jews, then you wipe out the problems. And so there's always at its base, when you find anti-Semitism in its rawest form, which is conspiratorial, there's something in it that seeks the annihilation of the Jews. So since there are Jews in Israel, and since there are people here who are driven by conspiracy theories, at the heart of which is hatred of Jews, it's obvious that what happened in Europe could happen here. And it did. When you go down the paths of the neighborhood that I'm sitting in now, which is the neighborhood that the young people came in, usually they're not married, or all of them are not married. Maybe they're living with their boyfriend or girlfriend. But this is where the children of the kibbutzim or people from outside who wanted to be part of the community came to live. And this is a great place to live, surrounded by other young people who are also beginning their journey in this life as independent adults. It's an awesome place to live. And they're little apartments. They're not big, but how many 25-year-olds need a big apartment? Nobody. And you go down these roads, and you go down these paths, and the homes of these young people, they're simply riddled with gunfire. And it was all shot at these poor young people who were just starting their lives. Children of the kibbutz, children from outside of the kibbutz. Their parents just meters away from them as they were being murdered. As the parents themselves are under threat of being massacred, sitting in their safe rooms. You see homes here that have been just burned to a crisp. To a crisp. They are crematoria. You know, there's a couple here that were murdered in their apartment. And this is a second wave, so they've already been in their safe room for 4 hours. The second wave started around 11 o'clock in the morning, 5 hours. And Nirel Zini and Niv Raviv are sitting there in their house, and somebody comes in to torch it. So they jump out the back window, and they're butchered. And Nir el-Zini was decapitated. And by the way, shortly after October 7th, I interviewed Avigal Gimpel, who works for Chevra Kadisha in Gush Etzion, and they volunteered to prepare the bodies for burial of the murdered, mainly from the Nova, but also from some of the kibbutzim and military bases. Well, not the military bases, they were buried by the military. And she said that there were many, many men who were decapitated. She didn't tend to them, her husband did. And Nirel was one of them. And some of these heads were brought back to Gaza as trophies to be sold in the open market. But there are mounds here of dirt that Nirel's father has gone through for the past year trying to find DNA from his son's head because he buried him without one. You look at this and you realize that this is the bottom. This is what the bottom looks like. When the bottom has come out, this is where you land. You land in a place that you have mounds of dirt that have been sifted through over and over and over again by a father looking for his son's brain. That's what the end looks like. And his young, beautiful girlfriend buried next to him. They were just murdered because they were Jews. If you want to, me as somebody with very right-wing views, I could sit here and I could argue about politics with everybody here. Oh, what did you do? Oh, you supported expulsion from Gaza. And for me, that was a great, great, great crime. And for them, it was the right thing to do. And we can argue about it from here till kingdom come. But at the end of the day, you look and you say, who cares who was right? Because the real problem here is that we forgot why Auschwitz happened. It didn't just happen because the Jews were powerless. It happened because the Europeans hated us so much that they wanted to incinerate us, that they wanted to annihilate us. And that same hatred has been cultivated for generations in the hearts of the Palestinians. That's what moves them. That's what motivates them. It's nothing that we can do about it because it wasn't anything that we did that brought them to the point, that low point, where they would want to sell the skulls of Jews in open markets or hold them as trophies in their houses, like the heads of deer that they hunted on a hunting trip. Nothing that a Jew does can possibly inspire that kind of hatred because it's not born of a reality. It's born of a deformation of a perception of reality in the hearts of people who harbor that kind of hatred, that they could possibly think that peace-loving members of kibbutzim or residents of Sderot or of Ofakim or the soldiers sleeping in their beds at 6:30 in the morning at the base at Erez Crossing Point, or the girls, the observers at Nachal Oz, that they were demons, or that they were subhuman, or that they were filth, that they could just treat worse than they would treat filth. You come here and you see what the bottom looks like. You see what the end looks like. I come here today. It's just a couple days before October 7th, or the anniversary, and most of the people in Israel are feeling elated because of the decapitation strikes in Lebanon, the elimination of Hassan Nasrallah and all of his top deputies by the Air Force over a period of 9 days of bombing that is based on just like superhuman intelligence and incredible operational skill on the part of our pilots, on the part of our intelligence operatives, on the part of I don't know who, like everybody. And we can see that, yes, there's a long road ahead, it's true, but, we've turned a corner. And as Prime Minister Netanyahu said at the UN, we are winning. And we can win, and we will win, because we're determined to see this through and not let this happen again. But when we realize that the reason why, we got to the point where they had an operation, they called it Game Changer, the operation to eliminate Nasrallah from this earth, and that it does change the rules of the game, and it does reshuffle the cards, or whatever you want to say, we had to go through Kfar Aza. We had to go through Be'eri. We had to go through this horrific massacre of our people, of our men, of our women, of our children, of our young people. That is, to get to where we are today, we had to go to what we went through on October 7th. And you have to ask yourself, what are we going to get if we do change the game, if we win, when we win, I should say, when we win, because I'm certain that we will. I think that we got here in part because people thought that Auschwitz was something that only happened over there. And that wasn't even ever true here. In 1929, there was a massacre of the Jews of Hebron that was very, very similar to what happened here on October 7th, with the rape and the mutilation of the corpses and the pure sadism of the butchers who killed the Jews who were living in Hebron. It was an ancient community, had been there for hundreds of years. We forgot that it did happen here and that it can happen here. You know, in 1956, Moshe Dayan was the chief of staff of the IDF. And there was a farmer in Nachal Oz, one of the kibbutzim, that was really obliterated on October 7th, named Roy Rotenberg. He was out tending the fields early morning, and he was massacred by marauders from terrorists who came in from Gaza. And when Moshe Dayan came, he came and he eulogized Roy Rotenberg. And his eulogy to Roy Rotenberg is one of the sort of iconic speeches of Israeli history. And I was just looking at, while I was preparing this show, and I just want to read you a couple of the lines from it, because it tells us something that we have to know, and that we had to know, and that we forgot about knowing. And this is what he says. He says, yesterday morning, Roy was murdered, dazzled by the calm of the morning. And you look here, by the way, the landscape here is so calm. It's so tranquil here. You know, I mean, you don't hear anything. The young people who were living here, they had it made. I mean, it was beautiful. It was tranquil. It was a great place to live. 95% paradise until the 5% hell took over. Anyway, he says, yesterday morning, Roy was murdered. Dazzled by the calm of the morning, he did not see those waiting in ambush for him at the edge of the furrow. So we should not seek Roy's blood from the Arabs in Gaza, but from ourselves. How have we shut our eyes and not faced up forthrightly to our fate, not faced up to our generation's mission? How have we forgotten that this group of lads who dwell in Nachal Oz is carrying on its shoulder the heavy gates of Gaza, on whose other side crowds of hundreds of thousands of eyes and hands praying for our moment of weakness so that they can tear us apart? Have we forgotten that? We forgot it. You know, for whatever reason, we felt that we had the technology, we had the electronic gates, we had the underground walls, we had the perfect radars that would shoot on sight of people coming in. And of course, we had the observers who were watching everything that happened on the other side of the fence. Nothing could get through. Nothing. We had done everything right. We left, but we were defending ourselves because we, the Jews, we are the startup nation and we have all the best technology, and that was all we needed, and we would be fine. But we weren't listening to them. Even the people, you know, who were more vigilant, like myself, you know, how much were we paying attention to what they were saying? We felt that Auschwitz was over there, and here it is. Here it is. Right here. I'm sitting in it. But I'm also sitting in Israel. And I'm also sitting in the country that just whacked Hassan Nasrallah and decapitated the entire general staff, or whatever you want to call it, of the largest, most powerful terror army the world has ever seen, of Hezbollah. Just like that. It seems like we did it without even breaking into a sweat. We did. They say, we went from Bora Amikta Ligra Rama. We went from the deepest pit to the highest height in just under a year. And that really tells us something about maybe why I was right not to go to Auschwitz. Maybe I should have just gone to Hebron. is that this is what Zionism is about, not October 7th, but about the fact that if we're vigilant and if we take the threat seriously, this can be 100% paradise, regardless of how they feel on the other side of the fence. We just have to never forget where we are and never forget who we are. We're Jews. And through no fault of our own, through the basic nature of our identity, we inspire extraordinary hatred. And it's nothing that we do. It's not the arguments that we have amongst ourselves that bring about a situation where 10-year-olds in Gaza want to torch the homes of Jews, and that they're congratulated, that they get the whooping cheers of a crowd of dregs of humanity that walk through that fence that was overrun on October 7th while they do it. It's not that they came here with backhoes to hack people's heads off. We have to remember that, and we have to understand that that exists. And again, it's not because of one side or another side of a political divide that exists. It's not. It's got nothing to do with the way we live, any of us, and we live in totally different ways. The lifestyle of somebody in Kfar Aza and somebody in Bnei Brak or Itamar, they're very, very different. And it's not one specific lifestyle that gets people angry and one specific lifestyle that makes people feel comfortable. It's just because we're Jews. And they hate us because of that. And what Zionism tells us, what Zionism's guiding understanding of reality is reality itself. Is that if we want to survive as a people, if we want to have freedom, if we want to be the light unto the nations, or if we don't want to be the light unto the nations, we just want to live our lives, the only way we're going to be able to do it is by defending ourselves. And the only way you can really defend yourself is not by having all the high technology, although that's a really good thing to have. Look what it did to our pilots who were able to eliminate Nasrallah and the entire general staff of Hezbollah in 9 days. That was technology. But it was also the determination of a people that we're not going to reach this again. We remember October 7th now because it was just yesterday. And as the people of Nahal Oz or here in Kfar Aza or Be'eri will tell you, it's still October 7th for them. Maybe it'll always be October 7th for them. I hope and I pray for them that it won't be. But the fact that October 7th happened in Israel and didn't happen in Plonsk and it didn't happen in Warsaw and it didn't happen in any of the thousands and thousands of little towns and villages that the Jews lived in for hundreds of years in Europe before they were annihilated by the Nazis, meant that we were able to get up. We were able to sort ourselves out. 22 soldiers were killed fighting in the battle for Kfar Aza. In all, over 700 soldiers have given their lives fighting this war since October 7th. I hate to think it, but I don't think that we've reached the end of the rope on that. We have a lot of battles ahead of us, both in Gaza and in Judea and Samaria, and of course in Lebanon and Iran. We have a lot still ahead of us, but we did turn a corner in this year as a people because of Zionism, because this happened here in Israel. It happened in Israel because we forgot what it means to be Jewish. The burdens, not only the privileges, not only the good stuff, but the bad stuff too, that doesn't have anything to do with us. The motivator for coming here, among many others, was an understanding of the nature of anti-Semitism. I don't know, what do I take going forward from being here in Kfar Aza on the memory of October 7th? That it happened. That it happened here. That it must never, ever happen here again. And if it doesn't happen here again, it's because Israel remembers that it can't. And if it doesn't happen here again, it won't happen anywhere again. The survival of the Jewish people, whether in Israel or abroad, is all redounding to one thing. Are we attached to the ground that we're on, not only by plowing it and by fertilizing it and by cultivating the gardens, but by understanding our surroundings and understanding what motivates the people around us and recognizing that we may be occupying their heads rent-free, But it's not us that's there. It's some deformed idea that they've been indoctrinated to believe, and we can't reason them out of something they weren't reasoned into, and we can just protect ourselves and defend ourselves with utmost vigilance so that Kfar Aza may one day become 100% paradise. And the rest of the country will be safe and prosperous as well. We're in a terrible war. It started here. But it's going to end over there, on the other side, so that they know that they can't come here again and do this. That's what I think. And those are my thoughts today in Kfar Aza, for what they're worth. I'll see you again real soon. Take care.